Greetings, opera lovers! Live from Pittsburgh, it's Rona, with the second part of a review of The Damnation of Faust by Berlioz from the Opéra Bastille in Paris. In the first video, I spoke about the production, and while the video was over 10 minutes in length, I only devoted about a few minutes to the production, and it really wasn't enough time. I did say that I enjoyed it, then I listened to it and I said I didn't like this part or that part. Overall, I really did enjoy it, except for the few parts that I just couldn't understand why such a great concept had to be ruined by certain moments. I don't understand why every single opera director in the entire world, meaning the head of the opera company, doesn't come to me, Rona Sutton, personally and say, hey, listen, we have this new concept opera and we're staging it. Please come watch it and tell us what's wrong. Because I'd be so happy to do that. I could improve their operas greatly. But so far, I haven't had any phone calls like that. So while there was much more to speak about the production, it's time to speak about the singing. The singing, which was on a very high level. Playing Faust was Jonas Kaufmann. Or should I say, playing Faust, aka Stephen Hawking's, was Jonas Kaufmann. Here we have a singer at the height of his career. I thought his singing couldn't get any better than when he sang Werther at the Met almost 2 years ago. Or this summer when I heard him sing Jean-José in Carmen, singing in Manon Lescaut with Christine Opolais, and finally singing Florestan in Fidelio. I mean, how could you sing any better? Well, guess what? In my opinion, he sang better. Maybe it's the role, or maybe it's that he was allowed more freedom to interpolate some unusual aspects to his vocalism. I think it's very rare to get a tenor of his stentorian quality who can also thin out his voice and go into a very light area in such tenderness in high notes. His singing was absolutely beautiful. There are several scenes where he sings by himself. It's an opera without much plot or storyline. Yes, it's based on the poem that Goethe wrote about Faust. There are certain similarities to the opera plot, very, very few, with the one by Gounod. Yet it's the same character, seduced by the devil, shown a beautiful portrait of Marguerite, with whom he falls in love, and then there's whatever happens later. In this opera, it was a little hard to tell what happened later, but that's up for interpretation. I would say, in general, it had a good ending. But I want to get back to Mr. Kaufmann's singing. Today, he is at the pinnacle of opera careers and, in my opinion, of fantastic vocalism. And yet I hear constant complaints. People saying he doesn't relate well to the other singers on stage, or things like he sings flat, or his French isn't very good. I've heard people say that he doesn't sound particularly good in the Italian repertoire because he doesn't have a particular Italianate style. And that is the only place that I would agree. Out of all the roles he's done, the ones that I like the least are the ones that he sings in Italian. However, I have to say that in Puccini, he does way better than in Verdi. I don't know why. But he wasn't the only person singing. There was also Bryn Terfel, Sophie Koch, and someone whose name I did not know singing Brandner, and his name looks like he's French, so I'll pronounce it a little bit French, Edwin He has been one of my favorite singers for forever. I love his voice. I think he has a gorgeous voice. This is completely subjective. What I think is beautiful and what you think is beautiful could be completely different. However, over the last few years, a wobble has developed. And when he first stepped on stage, it was not quite as focused as I was hoping he would be. But he really got it under control very quickly. And as always, he was excellent in the role of a villain. He just does them great. Now, I'm not a French expert, although I can understand and get by in French, but I wouldn't know good French accents from bad French accents. To me, Terfel is very convincing in his French. I have heard from people who are native to French, people who claim to be native in French and whatever, and they have wildly different opinions on Mr. Kaufmann's French. So I'm not going to chime in on that at all. Then there was Miss Koch. She really is not at the same vocal level as either of these singers. And unfortunately, there is a wonderful YouTube of the Damnation of Faust, where her role is played by Susan Graham, who has what I think is really a very ideal voice for this role. And I've heard so much of Régine Crespin singing parts of this, and she's one of my very favorite singers. So it's a little unfair of me to have those other voices in my head while listening to Miss Koch. However, she's extremely lovely on stage, and so what she may not have vocally, I think she actually makes up for in certain earnestness and charm. I think she's very beautiful. I know that shouldn't count, but heck, this is opera. It's visual, not just listening. I also saw her once backstage at the Met. She is so pretty in real life. I just had to mention that. I also saw Mr. Kaufmann backstage in real life, too, at the Met. And he is every bit as handsome as he is on stage. And I'm glad to see that he's put back a few pounds, because I was worried about him. Yes, I was actually worried about his health. Another thing about Mr. Kaufmann that worried me is that as his career started to be such a phenomenon, he seemed to be taking on everything. He was singing concerts here and with orchestras there, doing recitals all over the place, picking up all new engagements in new and old repertoire. I thought, oh my gosh, this guy's going to burn out in 5 years. Well, he hasn't. And he's, as I said before, he's singing better than ever. He's a miracle. I think he really knows his own voice and is able to manage it magnificently. There are actually two other aspects, more than that, three other aspects of the singing. In one of the reviews I read, they said that the person who played Brandon was not that good, that he didn't have a good enough bass voice. When I was listening to it, I didn't hear anything that I would complain about. I would also like to pay special mention to the chorus, who sang magnificently. Everybody here knows I am extremely partial to the Met chorus, but you have to take your hat off to the French chorus, especially the men who have so much more to do than the women. It was just perfect. And then there was the conductor. Now, maybe I'm ignorant, but I have never heard of him before. His name is Philippe Jourdan. Maybe he only conducts in France. Maybe he's the most famous conductor in the world, and I just never read about him. But I thought he put together an exquisite musical evening. So in spite of anything that I saw on the stage, it was overcome in negativity by the fantastic musical presentation. Also, the person who filmed the opera from the live performance sometimes chose to show close-ups of the singers' faces so you could not see the projections. I have no idea if this was on purpose because maybe the projections were objectionable or because it just seemed like a good time to show close-ups. That's what you get in filmed versions. You're not at the house. Most of you watching this are probably like me. You can't hop all over the world to see your favorite singer or hear your favorite opera. Small note to the Met. The Damnation of Faust has not been done in a very long time. And I think that with the right cast, it would be a terrific opera to put on. So there you have it. Well, I'm looking forward to some operas this coming spring here in Pittsburgh. La Boheme and The Rake's Progress. Perhaps you'll hear about one of those or both from me later. In the meantime, happy holidays to all of you who are watching this now. And if you're going to be watching this in some time in the future, I hope you had a good holiday, the end of 2015. Bye.